Happy Sweetest Day.
Well, what the fuck is Sweetest Day?
Have you ever heard of the Rebel Ripper or the Candy Killer?
Yeah, that's why you're not supposed to park your car and fool around on Lover's Lane.
He's here. The rebel killed my friends. I saw it with my own eyes. And he's coming for you.
What do you seek to learn?
Maybe sword stuff? Like a ninja? Can we do that?
You're hunting it, aren't you, Poodle? You want to be a bad bitch.
Alright. Your fucking head's coming right off.
Congrats! You suffered a trauma!
Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jim Fogarty. We are coming to you from up above Dave Grohl Alley in beautiful downtown Warren, Ohio, from Two Ticks and the Dog Productions. I know I've said this before. I have a killer guest on. I actually have a killer guest on. He makes movies about killers, all right? About ghosts, kind of ghosty, not ghosts, I don't know, zombie, not zombie, kind of ghost, kind of zombie, kind of. He's going to tell you all about it. He's going to tell you all about his next film and also a couple projects he's worked on before, as well as one that he is working on now as a producer. But before we get to this young, incredible filmmaker, we got to throw a shout out to our incredible sponsors. For without them, season 4 would not be possible. They are the Station Square Restaurant, Salvatore's Italian Grill, Prosperity Partners, Modern Methods Brewery, and Brokers Realty. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a writer, director, producer. He's a DP. You do any acting too, Doug?
Not that I care to mention.
Okay, so he's not going to claim the acting, though he's probably done it before. He is a man of multi-talent, and he has recently shot a film in Warren, Ohio, which is, of course, where we are from and where he is from. Howland and UT graduate, Mr. Doug Hawley. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
You are welcome, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come and, sit down with us and rap a little bit about Sweetest Day. Now, Sweetest Day is a film about a woman who learns samurai sword fighting, and she uses that to defend herself against a return, a return from the crypt, kind of a return from the dead Confederate soldier who has cursed the town. I mean, this is like some real, like kind of American Ninja. Jason meets American Ninja meets, Doug was showing me some of the dailies earlier, some rough cut stuff. It kind of also reminds me of like First Blood. Tell us a little bit about it. How'd you come up with the concept? And then we'll get into the history of your filmmaking career.
Oh, okay. Man, Sweetest Day is like several ideas that were knocking around in my head for forever. And they suddenly just clicked. I think one of the oldest ideas came about when I was in third grade. Our teacher was explaining what she had done for the weekend, which was take her family to, whoever's haunted hayride and whatnot. And her 7-year-old was too afraid to go on this haunted hayride. But he said, you know what? If I could take my plastic ninja sword, I'll go. And for some reason, that made perfect sense to me as a kid. And I thought, yeah, if you cut off, Jason's arms and legs, there's nothing he can really do. So I thought that was brilliant. And that always stuck in my head. So jump to a few years later, you know how it is. You're watching the evening news and your stomach turns. And as I was watching the news, I envisioned racism as an undead thing that wouldn't stay in its grave. So there came my villain. And then from there, I said, well, who's going to show up? So I came up with the idea of a bank teller who decides to learn samurai sword work at the local gym, and it went from there.
I want to find where this gym's at because I always wanted to learn how to fight, with a samurai sword. That would be pretty cool.
Right.
There were actually classes in Akron, but I didn't feel like driving that far. I forget what that's called. There's a word for that, right?
Kendo.
Kendo. There you go.
Typically.
Hey, do me a favor. Pull that mic just a little bit closer. That way they can hear you a little bit better. I like to sound like everybody's, in your head. You're in your head.
For sure.
So, third grade, and then how did you get inspired to kind of become a filmmaker? I know we're going to bounce around a little bit, but how did you...
I can't remember a time where I wasn't obsessed with movies. As I got to be about 7, 8 years old, a good friend of mine, Kevin Trapp, and I would run around with his mom's giant, soccer mom camera, start making movies in the basement or whatever, which is more or less just us, goofing around with plastic toy guns and things like that, like you do. As you get older, you keep doing it. It gets a little more refined. You figure out editing. In those days, as I got older into high school, computer editing wasn't readily available. So you do the method where you're cutting from VCR to VCR,
sure,
doing whatever you got to do. So I just kept making movies, whether it be just for fun with my friends or, I was active in Boy Scouts then. We would make these, anti-drug movies as a project. So of course we go above and beyond. We start doing things like, being a 13-year-old and wearing fur coats and pretending like you're selling drugs and, all that insane, silly stuff.
What year is this now? What year did you graduate?
I graduated high school in 2001.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is
like the 90s.
Late 90s,
yeah.
Middle, late 90s. It was a different time.
Gangster rap and, you're probably right towards the end of, the crack epidemic. That's actually probably still happening at that point here in town.
For sure.
Yeah.
But gangster rap was certainly an influence. I'm not sure what other kids in Boy Scouts, make a movie and have Snoop Dogg on the soundtrack. Murder Was the Case played over our end credits,
nice.
That sort of thing.
Do you still have these old movies on VHS?
Somewhere, yeah, on VHS.
Nice. So then what happens? You get to high school, you're making these films, and then you decide you're going to go, you're a University of Toledo graduate.
Yeah.
You ended up at UT.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that end up? I mean, how'd you decide to go, because a lot of people are like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then they're like, oh, the real world kind of hits them in the face. What are you really going to do? You're not going to be a movie maker, right? But then you end up going to school and studying. How does that happen?
Thankfully, I had parents that said, well, do what you want. So that was a big break. But it was the only thing I ever really wanted to do. So, I'm not sure. I remember I looked at BG, I looked at Toledo. Miami U had a program. I think they still do, no?
Sure, yeah. OU does too.
OU was, at that time, it was more like graduate level, and they didn't have much production when I looked. So I liked UT a lot because it was very much, you're going to get your hands on equipment, and they were, at the time it was a 50-50 split between film and digital. So, start off on a Bolex camera, work your way up to, 16 millimeter, sync sound and all that, while you're also learning video, which was really digital video, which is exploding at the time. So I remember it was such a big deal that I shot a senior project on the Canon XL2, which now you can't give away at this point in time. But back then it was like, oh, that's hot shit.
That was a great camera. Yeah.
For sure. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
I just went off on a tangent.
No, you got there. Well, it's usually when I'm bringing people on, I know these people, right, and come across in production. And so I think it's kind of a funny story because you called up the other day and you're like, hey, man, we're making this movie Sweetest, which we had heard of. I'd heard of, I knew you guys were shooting in town. But I didn't remember. I forgot that we had met, 30 years ago. Was it 30 years? How old are you now?
I'm 41 now, so it wasn't,
yeah.
quite that long.
Yeah, okay. I graduated 30 years ago, so I'm projecting. I'm not trying to make you that old, man. I promise.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I don't want you to be that old. But 20 years ago, right? At least 20, a little over 20
more,
years ago.
Because I would have been
2001.
probably about 17 or 18 years old. But to what you're saying, through my high school English class, my teacher knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker, and she says, well, I know Jim Fogarty, who had just produced this film locally, Wax and Gibbous, which I had heard of because of friends involved and so on. So she arranged for me to come interview you, like a not quite career day assignment, but something like that. So yeah. It was an eye-opening experience, and I certainly learned a lot. And obviously, it left an impression because it made me think I should call this dude.
Yes, nice, man, nice. And you're a filmmaker now. You've directed several shorts, and now this feature, Sweetest Day, and you're working on another film right now called If It Bleeds.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you get to UT. Was it a film? Did they have your BA's in film? Is that what the...
Yeah. So my BA's film and video studies.
Okay. So, and minor, did you declare minor?
I did not.
No. Okay. So now when you're talking to people, it's like digital media or mass media or I don't know, the majors of change, unless you're going to USC or some of these other schools, I don't know if film is actually still a major? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, most of the, more to your point, it's all just kind of under the communications umbrella, I think, for a lot of places. But
so you graduate UT, you make a couple films, and then what happens? Now you got to get a job, right?
Yeah, so I graduated UT. I hung around for a year and made a little bit of money, and then packed up everything into my Sebring convertible and headed west. So couch surfed for a while, got an apartment, and then just kind of hit the ground running. Anything I could do, to make money, but also kind of network. So right off the bat, I befriended a woman, Kenna McEnroe. She's an actress, best known for, she's got a role in Office Space. So she said, well, hey, I know these TV writers. She hooked me up with them, so started, being a personal assistant and a glorified gopher. Occasionally, they'd have me read something or, pretend like they gave a shit about my opinion, which was very, very polite and nice, I thought. But I just started working. And when I moved to California, I initially thought, okay, I'm going to become a California resident, go to grad school. But I looked around and there's great schools and everything, but I was just of the mind, I can keep working or I can go into debt to sit in the classroom. So I just chose to keep working. So worked for these television writers for a while, and then I was working 3 jobs at the time. I was house managing at a place called The Groundlings. It's like improv, comedy theater. A lot of famous people came out of there. Phil Hartman, Pee Wee Herman, Elvira.
Oh, that's cool.
Will Ferrell, lots of super talented people. So I was house managing there, helping with a friend's business, working for these writers. Eventually, I'm like, well, I have no time to write or work on anything. So what I ended up doing was I got a job at a place called Claremont Camera, which is it was the mom and pop version of Panavision.
Okay.
So it was a good job for me because I was able to learn, just learn a lot about more high-end equipment, things that I wasn't able to get my hands on as a student at UT. It's also a good place to network with camera crews, ACs, because they're always coming in prepping, so we're doing a lot of work, features, commercials, television shows. So that was a great place not only to network, but when I started making my own shorts again, I had this insane hookup. So I can go make a short film on, an Alexa, whereas everyone else is, scraping by with the best they can do. So that was really the reason I took that job, was get my hands on some equipment and just getting out there, and with any free time I had, start turning out shorts and other work.
So you're out there a couple years, and then you end up making a couple shorts that go to some film festivals, right? I want to get you to the point where we're talking about Alamo Downs with this line, "What the fuck kind of dojo is this?" This is a great, anybody that's out there, if you search Doug on Internet Movie Database and you see, there'll be a list of films, Alamo Downs is there, and there's a video of Alamo Downs. It's like a 45-second commercial, right. And it's almost like this used car salesman commercial where Alamo Downs is a bounty hunter, kind of like a, what's the right terminology? Like a schlocky kind of, it's almost, Alamo Downs, it kind of reminds me again, I think I said American Ninja before, but kind of like American Ninja meets Death Wish meets, that kind of style, like Invasion USA, like that kind of style.
If Chuck Norris was an alcoholic, I think that'll kind of give you the idea.
There you go. Yeah. So tell me the story. Where did you come up with the concept with this, and how did you end up making Alamo Downs? And where can we see it? Where can I see it specifically?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
At this point, I'll have to reach out and dig up a link for you. I do believe it's completed its small festival run at this point. But gosh, sitting around, the gentleman that stars as Alamo Downs is an actor named Todd Lowe.
Yeah. So how did you get Todd? He's from True Blood, and he's done I saw he actually, I want to see this movie with Skeet Ulrich. He did the 50 to 1, like the Kentucky Derby movie.
Yeah. I know him through a fellow collaborator and a martial arts expert producing partner of mine named Nick Papadakis plays in the same band as Todd. So, go see the band. Oh, you make movies. Next thing you know, you're having a few too many, and the ideas start flying back and forth. And how about a washed up bounty hunter? Great.
I love this concept.
Yeah. So we made the actual short film is, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes long or so, but we kind of made it as like a proof of concept soft pitch for, a silly web series is kind of what we had envisioned it ended up being. But who knows? We may work our way back to Alamo Downs at some point.
Yeah, man. I think there's some real potential to that, especially like you're looking at, it has a kind of like a 70s, 80s vibe to it.
For sure.
And, coming out, I mean, this show will come out much further down the road, but this weekend is, next weekend is the opening of The Fall Guy, where they're kind of they're bringing, next they'll have the Rockford Files and $6 billion man. I think Wahlberg was kind of developing that, but that fits right into that Fall Guy kind of vein. Although I think this is a little more, I think Alamo Downs is a little more funny. It's more of like a comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think you got something with that there.
Thank you.
Station Square is extending our 38-year anniversary celebration through April with our exclusive $38 entrees. Pick from our limited time anniversary specials: seafood platter, surf and turf, or twin king fillets. Only at the Station Square restaurant. Let Salvatore's Howland host your special event in their new banquet facility. Up to 150 guests will enjoy a metropolitan vibe, full-service bar, and customized menu. Call 330-609-7777 or visit salvatoreshowland.com.
With that buzz of select Brazilian Dolce coffee beans, that brew Ipanema's seductively sweet beach coffee, they mingle a flawless measure of their crisp Darlene lager. Somehow, somewhere in a secret lab with modern methods, they blend the perfectly balanced, light, uplifting, gold medal winning brew known as the Percolator. Available at Modern Methods Tap Room or the new Darlene Lounge on Courthouse Square in downtown Warren. Tell me about Sweetest Day, or tell me how you got to Sweetest Day. How many Alamo Downs kind of projects did you go through before you got to Sweet? Because each thing you're building on the next project, right?
Right.
And are you working at I forget the name of the place, the rental house?
No.
I don't mean now. I mean, are you working at the rental house when you're doing Alamo Downs and kind of building your resume?
At the Alamo Downs point, yes. I was still working there. That place ended up going the way of the dodo, unfortunately.
Oh, that's too bad.
So while I was developing Sweetest Day, I took a post-production job at a company called Advanced Digital Services. So I was doing everything from, conforming movies, TV shows to Netflix standards, subtitling. I was doing restoration work on Hanna-Barbera cartoons, doing that at night, and then cool. Making the short version of Sweetest Day during the day, as well as writing the screenplay. So I was fortunate. I'm not going to name names because people still work there, but people were very helpful at both these places I worked. And so I more or less, while getting my work done, produced these shorts, on the clock.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. It fell into that sweet spot. But I'm sorry. I'm going in a million directions.
No, it's good. I want to know about the Hanna-Barbera stuff. What kind of you're doing restoration stuff on that?
The Flintstones, the Jetsons, because what they were doing at the time, this is right before the pandemic, but Netflix was one of our clients, and they're really building up their streaming library. So they wanted all these classic things. So we were going through and just these all this old animation film looked like it'd been sitting in a dumpster forever. So just getting all the sorry, I'm kicking your table here.
You're good.
So just getting all the spots and flaws and things out of that, frame by frame, just going through almost like Photoshop kind of cleanup work.
Yeah, what program are you using to do that?
That's a great question because it's been a few years that I'm drawing a blank.
You can pull this up if you want to make yourself more comfortable too, if you want.
Sure.
Just grab that.
Sorry, I'm blanking. I cannot remember the name of the program.
Yeah, that's all right. That's kind of fascinating to me though, because I always kind of wonder, like, how did they get that to look, better? Right? You're I don't know what that stuff was composed on originally, but it's all probably on video or on 3/4 inch at that point as an archive, and then you're transferring it over and cleaning it up. I don't know.
We would get it like they would take the original film and upload it to like an LTO. And then we would download all the assets from the LTO, go through, and then really just frame by frame, like, you're doing things like there's a huge spot on Fred Flintstone's face. So you're cloning like the good part of his cheek and covering up this imperfection, just constant stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, not a bad job to have, but it'll make you crazy. Some people have a patience for it. I don't, just being tied to a desk and,
Well, you really have like a wealth of experience though, because if you're thinking about like becoming a director, becoming a filmmaker, here you've got all this hard asset equipment work, right, where you're actually getting hands on some, I'm sure a varied array of different cameras. Then you've got the kind of the creative side where you're working for some of these TV writers. Then you're doing all this other stuff, and now you've also got some post work where you're actually like kind of doing touch-ups and things of that nature. So I'm sure a lot of that practical information goes into your creation when you're writing and directing, and especially when you're working on Sweetest Day or you're working on If It Bleeds. How much of that, I mean, do you find that stuff is, you're using that knowledge on these projects of your own, some of that practical knowledge that you learned along the way?
Absolutely.
Like that's not stuff you learn in film school, typically.
True. Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, it was really invaluable, I think, for me. I consider like all that work I did kind of my grad school, since I didn't end up going. And I just wanted to get as much experience, as much knowledge as I could. That was the best way to do it. So yeah, I mean, really anything I learned at all those places, whether it be, the camera house or post-production facility, working for the writers, that was really my education. One of the writers I worked for wrote on the show Scrubs. And I always tell this story because some people ask me, why didn't you ever try and get into episodic television? And this woman was like 8 months pregnant, told me about how she put her heart and soul into a script about postpartum depression, and then it went to the writer's room, got chopped up and full of kind of like basically fart jokes and things like that. And I just thought, yeah, that's not for me. And I the goal for me was always, to make films and be a director. And that's, as you know, that's the hardest job to get, because
sure,
it's not like people are, handing those gigs out. Really you got to make it yourself and make your own opportunities. So all those, I guess, to put a neat bow on it, yeah, all those jobs were absolutely priceless, and anything I learned there was, you couldn't get in film school. I'm so glad I went to film school. I absolutely love going to UT, but yeah, once getting out there and basically hitting the pavement in the real world is the way to do it.
Did you feel like you felt like film was demystified from you going to film school, but then you get out in the, kind of quote unquote real world, and you feel like you learn so much more? Like they didn't teach you, I don't want to say any of this stuff in film school, but a lot of the stuff, especially because the technology continues to change, right? So you have to be a student of the game, but also you have to learn all these different facets. I always feel like it's easier to be a director if you understand the camera, you understand acting, you don't have to be an expert in every single one of those areas, but you got to know sound, you got to know how something's going to compose together, and how you're going to edit it, and you kind of have to have all these things. But I don't know if you necessarily get that from college. I think you get that from being out there in the workplace and then working with all these personalities, right? Because I don't know, in film school, it's like if you're smart about it, right, you form a team and you network and you're all working on each other's films and everybody's like rah, rah, rah. At some point, sometimes you get out there and it's like everybody, maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people that feel like it's a competition.
For sure.
Did you experience that same thing? I'm just kind of,
Yeah, I did. And I don't have like a specific story, I think, but yeah, that's the vibe. And I guess just getting out there and finding the real ones, finding your team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are full of themselves and make it a competition, they fall off pretty quick once you really get going.
Yeah.
It's you will find out real quick who your real friends are when you really get working.
How did you avoid kind of getting into the whole, Hollywood fame kind of, people want to, everybody wants to have those fur coats that you were putting on yourself in 8th grade, right? And be flossing.
Yeah.
How did you get away from that, or how did you avoid that?
Who said I did?
Yeah. Good answer.
I don't know. I guess I don't have a taste
because you're grounded, I guess. So
I don't know if grounded. I just maybe don't have a taste for it. I don't care to be famous. I just want to make movies. I'd prefer to be left alone at the coffee shop, but it's okay to come say hello, I guess. But yeah, I mean, just kind of that Hollywood BS is, it is what it is. It's all surface level. So it's just, find people that really care about storytelling and filmmaking, and that's really all you can do.
So you're, at least of the films that that I've been exposed to, the projects that I've been exposed to, obviously Cursed World Problems was another one. And what's the actress's name? Because she's also in...
Right. Her name's Doree C. So, yeah, just extremely talented actress who I met through mutual friends. We were paired up together in a wedding. I made this short film, Cursed World Problems, with her as the lead. She came and auditioned for us and just hit it out of the park. And we had a great experience making it. And the movie did pretty well on its festival run. She got some awards for her acting. I did for writing. We played all over Hollywood and California. We ended up, after its festival run, we ended up licensing it internationally for cable. So we actually made like about a nickel on it.
Yeah, nice.
So not bad. But it was such a good experience. I liked working with her so much that when the ideas started coming together for Sweetest Day, I basically just wrote it for her. So when I was maybe about 30 or 40 pages in, I rang her up. I said, I wrote this for you. It's pretty bizarre. Brace yourself. But if you want it, this is yours. And so she read it and she gave me a call back. She obviously she had some notes and some questions and things, but she said, no, I'm game. I like this. Let's go. So just kind of kicking it back and forth with her, I completed the initial draft of the screenplay. And then, having made Cursed World Problems for as well as it did and everything, it didn't necessarily generate a ton of heat. It's like, great, you made a short film. So I knew I wanted to make Sweetest Day as a feature. And what I did was I kind of took the business model that the Coen brothers used making Blood Simple or Sam Raimi making Evil Dead, which is I made a proof of concept version or a short film version. In our case, the short film version of Sweetest Day plays a lot like a trailer, but it does have like a beginning, a middle, and end. The point was to sell Doree as the lead and myself as the director. Also give you an idea of the tone and, and everything. The other reason we did that was, and I'm sure you've run into this, it's a lot easier to get someone to watch something that's 6 minutes long than reading something that's 100 pages.
Sure.
So that was like, here's what we're doing. And our kind of motto was, the train is moving. If you wish to hop on, let's go. So we made the short film, and then we were all set to roll it out for festivals, and the pandemic happened. So everything went from, everything closed, and film festivals were all online. And we didn't really see the point in submitting it to online festivals because we don't know, how many people are going to see it or whatever. And once it gets into festivals, like, it limits you in other places. So we sat on it till things started opening up again. And my producer submitted it to a film festival called Mutant Fest, which is run by Joe Bob Briggs. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah,
Joe Bob?
yeah.
Yeah,
He
Monster
did the
Vision.
Yeah.
He's great.
The movie show.
Exactly.
I love
Yes.
that show.
Yeah, and so great writer, and he's got a show again back on Shudder, which is great.
Oh, that's cool.
But he had this film festival in Pennsylvania at the Mahoning. It was called the Mahoning Drive-In. So it was great. I traveled out there. It was a big festival full of, fellow horror nerds and movie enthusiasts. And I got to see my movie shown on a drive-in screen.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was a great kickoff. And then from there, the movie played, very well in the South and in Florida. We played a lot of festivals here in Ohio, like Short and Sweet in Cleveland, Akron Horror Festival. We did Tremendous. And then again, it played a lot of places in Los Angeles, Pasadena Film Festival, Hollywood Independent. So from that, the movie getting around, garnering awards for Doree's performance. I got awards for my writing and direction as well. So once that heat started generating, and the movie bounced around, we were fortunate. My producer, Clive Hawkins, was able to basically piecemeal the budget together for us. And then the writer's strike happened, or the writer's strike, and the Screen Actors Guild strike. So seizing the opportunity, I said we should submit this movie, since it's a low budget movie anyway, and we're completely independently funded. we can probably get an interim agreement from the Screen Actors Guild, which then would allow us to use Screen Actors Guild talent to shoot during the strike, which we did. So that was how we were able to shoot the film here locally in the fall.
That had to be really difficult.
Yes, the Screen Actors Guild was very generous with us, but also they had allegedly thousands upon thousands of submissions for this interim agreement. So, and there's only so many people working there. We ended up getting delayed a little bit before we could actually start shooting. So that pushed us into November, which is fine. It still looked like fall here. The weather didn't change too bad. We only got snowed on once. So in the end, it all worked out. But it was kind of, you're here, boots on the ground. You have a lot of your crew doing prep work, and we're scouting locations, doing all this stuff, and we can't move or do anything with our talent at all until they give us the go-ahead. But they did, and we eventually made it work.
How many days did you shoot? How many days did it take? I know you said you're doing some pickup shots still in California, but how many days did you shoot here on the ground?
We had a 17-day shoot, and then I did an additional 2 days just recently with my director of photography, just getting some exterior shots, and then we also filmed the eclipse that had just happened, so we can cut that into the film.
Nice. I'm curious because it looks, I know it's not color corrected yet and you're still looking good, but it looks like you have a great dynamic range in those shots. What did you shoot on?
The camera was the Alexa Mini LF, and then we used Canon CF lenses because we wanted a vintage look. And so Canon CF, the Rehouse Canon lenses are similar to K35s, which James Cameron used on Aliens and Kubrick used on Barry Lyndon, and that was good enough for me. So I said, yeah. But our DP, very talented guy, Logan Fulton is his name. He won an Emmy last year for the documentary Meddling. Really tested a lot of lenses to get that look dialed in. And just, that's mostly him. And I would occasionally offer suggestions or whatever. But the guy is really just incredibly talented. I hate using the genius word, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there. Yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this man. He went above and beyond, when we were out here shooting, and I'm very happy with the way the movie looks.
How is that 6K? What is the?
Believe 6K.
Yeah, sure.
I am 99% sure.
Yeah,
it's 6K.
So your distribution model is you're obviously you want to do theatrical, right?
Right.
And then streaming services, maybe like Shudder or maybe is it Netflix? Is it? You're still in the process.
We're still in the process. Yeah.
Are you going to festival run it?
Ideally, that's what we'd like to do is give it a festival run, get a lot of laurels, and then see what kind of bites we get from the distribution company. There's talks. We'd also like kind of rolling it out ourselves theatrically is a possibility, and kind of four-walling the film in places where there's a market for it, larger cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Cleveland. Obviously, there's lots of places in the South that would also play. So again, that's all still up in the air as we're completing the movie.
Are you thinking about? So I call my listeners Prodders out there. Like if you're listening from Warren or from Trumbull County, like that's kind of a character in the film. Mm-hmm. Trumbull County is kind of is the main location in the film, and then there's a lot of recognizable, for lack of better terms, obviously the courthouse, but even above and beyond that, the Saratoga, the bank building, down the street here. Like, are you looking to do a local premiere as well, or a local screening of it? Not premiere, but a local screening of it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Because we got so many people locally that ended up working on the movie or just helping out or whatever. So yeah, I would love to show it here in Warren. If not the Robins, then one of the drive-ins.
That's super cool. Yeah, and kind of to dovetail on that, or to go back. So Doug originally called, it's like, hey, I made this movie Sweetest Day, and I interviewed you when you were and I was a senior. I'm like, oh yeah, well, what an idiot! Like I was an idiot, right?
No.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of funny. I'm not going to tell that story, but, but he was like, hey, is it cool to use a couple of TV commercials that you guys did? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. So that's how we started to have this conversation. And then he sent me a couple little clips of it. I'm like, oh, I know where that's at. Oh, I know where that's at. So it's kind of an amalgamation of homages to Warren and Trumbull County. Like, I think it's really neat that you did that. And of all the places that you could have shot, you're living full-time in LA. You've been there for 20 plus years.
Since 06.
Since 06. Okay, so going not quite 20 years.
Getting there.
But why bring it back? Why come back to Warren? I mean, and make it such a big part of this story.
I probably didn't realize this till after I had written the script and done a few drafts, but I think it was an admission of homesickness. So when I wrote it, Warren was what was in my imagination. And I'm beyond happy and pleased. I got my first choice was to make it in Warren. When I wrote it in my head, I designed it thinking like, if John Carpenter can make Pasadena, California look like, whatever Haddonfield, Illinois is in Halloween, then we can do the same. So it was like, if the opportunity arises that we make it here locally in California, that's fine. That's where we made the short film version. And we'll fake it for the Midwest. Best case scenario, I got to bring it to Ohio and shoot here. I mean, you saw the sequences in the film. This woman goes to the local gym, to learn martial arts. When I wrote it, I imagined the former Y, which is Trumbull Family Fitness now, and that's where we ended up shooting. The police. We used the sheriff's department right downtown. That's where I imagined all this taking place. So it was really a blessing and really surreal. When you're finally out there shooting it, and it's like, okay, this is exactly what I had imagined. This is the exact gym I imagined this would take place in. That was a great feeling. And yeah, I mean, I cannot say enough good things about shooting in Warren, really.
How different is it to shoot here back in your hometown, here in Trumbull County versus out in California? What are the main differences? What are the advantages too?
Can I swear?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay.
Please, fucking swear.
So when you're
there, I'll break the seal for us.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. In Los Angeles, when you ask, usually before you finish the sentence, you're met with "fuck you, pay me."
Mm-hmm.
And in Warren, when you say, "Hey, I'm making a movie," and before you finish the sentence, people slap their hands together and say, "How can I help?" So that really just got us a ton of mileage. People just happy to help. And they think it's cool, and they thought it was great that we came back here to do it.
That's awesome. That's kind of the answer I was looking for. Plug Warren. I want to plug Warren, right? You had, aside from the YMCA, there was a scene with our buddy Corky Monofsky in the Ohio Inn.
Yes.
Best fish on the planet, Friday fish.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Amazing burgers as well. Shout out to our friend Kim Goranitis who hooked that up. Our family owned that place for, it's been here forever and a day. So, but I mean, they were so gracious with us. They let us shoot all night. And then, they opened the bar up for the crew when we wrapped. I mean, you cannot beat that.
I just recently took my son there for fish bites. I introduced him to the Ohio Inn.
Yes.
He's a big fan now. Yeah.
And
what's the fella's name that runs it?
George?
George.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, where are you going? Because it was like Easter time. And I go, oh, hey, man, thanks for the... He goes, no, come here. He gave my son a full Hershey bars. Apparently that's a thing, right?
Yes.
And they're like, you can't leave without getting a candy bar. I love this place.
It is a great place. The crew loved shooting there. We would have lunch there some days, grab a drink. People loved it. A lot of the out-of-towners really like Warren, Ohio, because you can get pretty much falling down drunk for $25.
6 cents?
Yeah. So, yeah, people used to paying LA drink prices really loved it here.
Where else did you guys? Did you guys? I saw like some shots of the background of maybe City Hall, or you said the graveyard or the shot behind Warren Family Fitness. What are some other
Correct.
like noticeable places that people would recognize?
We shot at the bright orange Howland tennis courts.
Oh yeah.
We shot at Katie's Corners in Howland as well. Downtown, let's see, Saratoga, we shot at the bank building, the sheriff's department. In Courthouse Square, the climax of the movie takes place in front of the courthouse. I know I'm leaving something out. Various alleyways, like next to the Best Western, who housed a lot of our cast and crew, and again, would just offer up, like, hey, no one's using the ballroom. You can use that as, staging area or whatever. They gave us conference rooms. Just tremendous.
You guys went to the underground. You said
to the underground
catered
as well.
for you a little bit.
Yes. Gentleman's name that runs it, is it Brendan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm saying
Teresa
your name wrong.
and Brandon, I think is.
I was sitting there with a director of photography, and we were shot listing, and having a couple of beers, and the guy just kind of came over and said, "Hey, if you don't mind me asking, what's going on? People don't usually work on the computer here." And I said, "Oh, we're making a movie." And he said, again, "Sweet, how can I help?" So, he, again, like I said, opened his doors to us. They catered a few nights for the production. Just let us kind of have a run of the place, and we're super generous and helpful. And again, I just cannot thank everyone in town enough, really.
Have you always been into, and I want to put it in the right terminology, it's not really like almost like a bizarro world universe, like Alamo Downs, right? It's kind of like this alternate universe where these, especially at least the scene that I saw in the dojo, where it's like this funny kind of quirky, you have this cool action happening, and then you also have like this comedy where the guy's like popping up and there's a sumo wrestler, and then the gypsy curse, like you have this gypsy curse where it's almost like this not alternate universe, but like it doesn't obviously take place in like reality, right, in a sense.
Right. I think probably, I don't have a favorite movie, but if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Ghostbusters.
Oh,
and I saw that as such a young kid, and that really, the sort of butting up of, spooky shit, horror tropes and whatever against the humor always just resonated with me. So yeah, I like things that are off, a bit of fantasy, but have a sense of humor. And I guess that probably just, Ghostbusters more than anything is the answer to that question.
Is that what If It Bleeds is like also? Does it take place in that kind of context, or no? Is it different?
If It Bleeds is a little different. I produced that one for a filmmaker friend of mine, co-produced, I should say, with, his name's Matthew Hirsch. And he's a great guy. We met at a horror film festival in Orlando, where Sweetest played, and then he had a great short as well. And we hit it off. It turns out we live pretty close to each other in Los Angeles, so we kept up, and that's how that started. But to answer your question, I think it's a little more, it's quirky and it does have a sense of humor, but I think it's a little more dark. He probably leans closer to things like The Terrifier.
Not familiar.
Okay, that's pretty gnarly horror movie that's got a good cult following as of recent. You might have seen Art the Clown as kind of the killer character.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
like real dark. This is like Dario Argento kind of like crazy bloody shit. Yeah or no?
Yeah, I'd say If It Bleeds is a lot gnarlier than Sweetest Day.
Okay, gotcha.
We have Doug Jones from the Guillermo del Toro movies in one segment plays like a demented plastic surgeon. There's a killer marionette. That's pretty funny.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
If you can get past how unsettling looking it is. We had just the team we brought in to design this This marionette was great. Adrienne Rose Leonard's her name. She worked on Cranky Anchors and things like that. She designed the puppet with Alison Victoria Wolf, who was a co-producer, also sort of stars in this segment with this killer marionette. It's very unsettling, but I don't know if you got a sick sense of humor, I think you go for it. But it is very different than Sweetest Day.
That's cool.
That. Yeah.
Now, who else is in this film? You mentioned that the guy there, but
Dee Wallace, who
E.T.
The mom from E.T.
Yeah.
and then
Cujo.
Exactly, Cujo and Critters. She's got a lot of horror cred.
Oh, she's in Critters too.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah. And it's really a who's who of kind of cult horror actors. You weren't familiar with The Terrifier, but one of the leads in it is a woman named Catherine Corcoran, who is just absolutely fantastic. Gosh, I'm blanking. There's so many people. Chrissy Fox. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank trying to picture everybody. There's so many people scattered out through this movie.
Is it one long narrative, or are they vignettes? Is it like
there are shorts that are connected via a through line?
So it's like 4 rooms, kind of.
Right. So
Okay.
Catherine Corcoran plays a newscaster who basically will do anything to get her story. Hence, if it bleeds.
Gotcha.
So that's the through line that connects these bizarre segments. So that is actually, as soon as I get back to LA, I'm going to see the cut of that. But that should be around in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's almost basically almost done.
Correct.
Super cool. Now, does that have you guys looking at distribution on that, or you have? Or I was saying looking for it, but do you have distribution built into that?
Matthew's he worked on another anthology film that he got distributed on the platform Screambox. So I don't know if he's going to go the same route or shop it around, but there's irons in the fire. I'm comfortable saying.
Awesome. Want to be debt-free faster, save money in taxes and insurance, and retire with more wealth? Call Zach Byler of Prosperity Partners Financial Solutions today for full-service financial advisory. 330-219-5225. If you're looking to buy new or sell your current home or commercial property in Northeast Ohio or Northwestern Pennsylvania, look no further than Brokers Realty at brokerssold.com. Top Shelf Bar, 450 wines on hand, and your choice of local craft beers, including Modern Methods Brewery Double IPA, now available at the Station Square restaurant. So once you wrap with, well, obviously, if it bleeds, once you finalize the cut, right, and finish it, and you finalize Sweetest Day, what is next? What are your big plans?
I have another screenplay that I'm kind of revising now. It's another horror movie. I can't talk too much about it, but it was going to be, if we didn't make Sweetest Day last year, this was the contingency plan. So we had these 2 projects going and then ended up got Sweetest Day bankrolled and we were off and running. But this other movie, it's a little bit smaller in scope as far as locations and things, but I can say that if it makes economic sense, we want to do it in Ohio again because we did have such a good experience here.
Awesome.
So hopefully that'll happen for us because, again, it's just Ohio also visually, I think, is pretty interesting. I was talking about it with our DP, and the only thing we could, I mean, aside from, the type of architecture and things and all that, he put it perfectly. He said, the light hits different in Ohio.
So I've been talking about this, or we've been talking, Murphy and a bunch of others. There's a certain time of the year, probably right when you were shooting Sweetest Day, where the light does fall different and the sun looks different. So golden hour here looks different here than most, Western PA too, because obviously, but looks different here than anywhere else. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of a neat, especially like driving down the interstate or even driving through some of these back roads, and you only get a couple weeks, man, maybe if you're lucky, where you can see reds and yellows and kind of these burnt oranges, and the way the light hits it, man, it's just beautiful. And anybody that's from Ohio or probably Michigan or Western PA, same kind, they understand what you're talking about. But yeah, the light does hit a little different here. So you're kind of promoting that through some of the films. I'm really I want to know what's happening. And I keep looking at my notes. Alamo Downs, I really gotta see what's happening with Alamo Downs, man. I told you, Doug and I were talking beforehand, and my dad was driving in the car, and yesterday I was talking with him, and he's actually meeting me in Orlando at this film festival, so we're kind of coordinating plans. And he's like, "Oh, you interviewing that filmmaker tomorrow?" I go, yeah. And I'm playing the clip, and he's hearing it, through my AirPods while he's driving. And Alamo Downs, has this classic, what I'm considering is a classic line. "What kind of fucking dojo is this?" And my dad just hear him start laughing on the other, and he goes, "What is that?" And I go, "It's this dude's movie, man. It's like a commercial, for this guy's services." And I played it again, and we were just rolling. I just think that's so funny. So hopefully anybody that hears this and maybe is a Todd Lowe fan, hopefully Todd Lowe can reinsert himself into this project, man, because I just think it's funny. Is it always horror, or is it, I guess what I'm saying is or is that where you're kind of, obviously you lean towards that, but is every writer and director kind of has a slew of projects, and this, sure, if I had the wish list, it would be this or it would be that.
Yeah. I don't think it's what I'd always want to do, but man, if I got a career where I only could make horror movies, that's fine. But yeah, there's so many things I'd like to do, just a straight drama or straight comedy for sure. I like horror movies just in general. They're fun,
Is it easier to get that kind of genre picture financed than something else?
Yeah, horror movies are pretty easy to finance. Sweetest Day was designed to be a low-budget kind of slasher movie of sorts. It's really a genre mix, but it's primarily a horror movie. But those are the easiest to bankroll because they almost are always profitable, and they're easy to sell. And you can make a horror movie with non-celebrities. Mm-hmm. Because you're really selling the premise. I'm sure you've gone into 100 meetings and when I was shopping around Sweetest, I get the same thing. Great, who's attached? And I said, well, I wrote it for this person. And they say, oh, well, wouldn't it be great if we could get Keke Palmer or whoever? And Keke Palmer's great, but sorry, I wrote it for DeRacy. But yeah, the other thing I think that was important for us as far as raising the money was just being able to tell the movie we wanted. When we were pretty close to getting going on production, we had a financier drop out because at the last minute, they wanted to control story and edit and all these things that I wasn't willing to give up. They also had some difficulty with the subject matter because, I don't know, I think they were maybe afraid they were going to put off potential ticket buyers that are Confederates or something. But yeah, they were genuinely thought...
There's a lot of those around.
Yeah, they genuinely thought, we were going to upset people. And we made a movie about a strong black woman. So how does one get into, where did you find these investors at? Are they, people used to say hey, dentists are great investors because they have expendable income and they want to get attached to different stuff. Are you going to people who have invested in other films, or are you going to where does that, if you're an indie filmmaker, right, which is what you are, where someone's listening, they want to get their film made, where you go? Both.
Okay.
Because there are people that will invest in films and are champions of the arts and things like that, and then there are people who our dentists, and they'll say, "Wow, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like you're onto something. Instead of going to Vegas, I'm going to give you this money."
How many investors did you have to string together? Were you able to get one or two, or did you have to line up a bunch of them? What's that process like? Because typically we're artists, right? You go to film school and you're like, oh, I learned about the camera, and I learned about blocking, and I learned about acting and sound and all these other things. And then you get out and you're like, oh shit, I have no business sense in how this actually works. So where did that come from?
I still have no business sense, but I do have a producer that's got a little bit more than I do, and that would be Clive Hawkins. So he was able, just through, he's kind of a jack of all trades type. So between his acting and stunt endeavors and other business ventures, he was able to piecemeal that together through some people who are dentists and doctors, and other people who are more on the producing side. So it was a mix of things.
There's not a lot of times where, this isn't art where there's a ton of dreams, and oftentimes those dreams don't get realized because either too much time passes between the concept and trying to get this thing completed, or even off the ground. I mean, here, first off, it's hard enough to make one film, let alone multiple films to keep it going and keep the ball rolling. And certainly a feature film is another animal in and of itself, right? You and I can go out and shoot a short in an afternoon or a couple of days. 17 days, it's funny to think of, because if you think about a big budget movie, it's like, oh, they shot that thing over 3 months or 4 months, and you shot a feature over 17 plus a couple of pickup days in Ohio or whatever. How does that make you feel that you've gotten to the point now where you are not just one feature but 2 features? You're a co-producer on the other film, and obviously you wrote and directed Sweetest Day. Feel good about it? Feel, if you're looking back and you're telling your 17-year-old self, hey man, you're going to get to this particular point, what's that sense of accomplishment like for you now?
I guess it's hard because I always just kept grinding. So it's kind of funny to stop and look back. But I do feel great about it, and I'm very happy. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and there's been so many, false starts and things you were attached to. I mean, when I first moved to Hollywood, working as assistant to these TV writers, I was going to be a writer's assistant on a CBS show that ended up getting canceled at the 11th hour. And then everybody went on strike, and then it was like, great. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do now. So yeah, it does feel good because there's like I said, so many false starts, and a lot of times, just constant rejection. We don't like your script. Hey, come back. Come back after you do something or do more, whatever it is. So it's just, I don't know. I just keep grinding. I got to this point because I never stopped. Mm-hmm. Even when I was chained to a desk job that I hated because I needed to pay the bills and do all that stuff, I always was working somehow, even if it's just, okay, with whatever energy you have at the end of the day, try and write something. Get up and write more, work in what you can. Nights, weekends, go help on somebody's film project. Even if it's beneath you, or not beneath you, but maybe not a role that you would necessarily take. But yeah, man, I'll run and get coffee. I will hold your boom mic. I will do whatever. So during the pandemic, a friend of mine called and got hired on an independent movie that was mostly veterans. And he said, "Hey, I'm running the art department. I can probably get you on, and I could use your help." I said, "Sure." So I go and work on this movie. It's called MVP, directed by Nate Boyer, who's dude does a lot. He's a veteran and briefly played in the NFL. He's kind of known. He wrote a letter to Colin Kaepernick, suggested if you need to protest, take a knee as opposed to sitting. That kind of got him got him some heat. So through his connections with the NFL and, you know, his veteran connections, whatever, he was able to make this movie. I went and worked on it. Nate ended up coming on to Sweetest Day. And all I did was basically, you know, art department BS. So you never know.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, and at that point, you know, the Sweetest Day short was done and everything else. So last January, you know, I run into Nate randomly. What are you working on? Oh, we just won these awards here. Oh, okay. So brought him on board. And that's another thing that got the movie going. So I just get out there and grind and try not to have an ego. It's probably the best advice I could give anyone.
Did you feel, were your expectations different when you were younger? Did you ever have like a moment of realization where you're like, oh, I thought it was going to be one way, but it's actually something different?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because, you know, the business always changes. So when I was young at my film geekiest, you know, middle school, high school, before I was off to college, I was kind of looking at filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino, who came up at a certain time through kind of through the indie market. And that market has since disappeared now because all the majors have their indie branch. So really all these quote-unquote independent movies that you see really aren't. They're just smaller studio films. So the way that they broke in wasn't necessarily going to be the way that I made it in, you know. And I realized, you know, when you get to Los Angeles, I quickly realized I need to, like, have roots or else I'm not going to last. So that was like, okay, get a real job that can also help out your goal. Like, you know, have things that can help. Sorry, I can't talk.
You're good.
So, you know, getting a job where, you know, there are assets and resources that are going to help your long-term goals, that was clutch for me.
What, like when you see kids coming out of film school now, what is different now versus, you know, 15 years ago or 20 years ago when you got done, or 15 years ago? My math's terrible. But what's the big change? What is the big difference? I mean, what do you recommend young filmmakers, young aspiring filmmakers to do now that maybe they couldn't have done, you know, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, I mean, the technology is there. So you can make a halfway decent short, or in some cases, people have made pretty good features with your iPhone. You know, you can edit and do everything in the palm of your hand. I remember, like, when you were making Wax and Gibbous, and when I was, you know, in high school and going into college, like, all that technology wasn't available. And what we had was, you know, you had to kind of research things, and I had to figure out how to install this thing into my, you know, crappy computer, and, you know, so I can edit and all this other things. When it's all there, it's available to you. I think but the difference, I think, maybe to your question, when you're saying, like, what's the difference between students now and then when I was getting out, I feel like a lot of people they're content driven, and they don't really differentiate between television and film and whatever. It's just fodder for a streaming platform. And I try to not see it that way. I hope Sweetest Day comes off as very cinematic and doesn't feel like television, you know.
Well, it looks, from the clips that you've shown me, even though they're on the phone, but it looks very cinematic in terms of your depth of field, in terms of the look of the, you mentioned about the lenses or whatever. As soon as you said kind of like aliens, I was like, oh yeah, it does have that. It looks like a Halloween movie. I mean, it looks like it kind of looks like Halloween, really. That right. Same kind of style.
For sure.
So I think you certainly accomplished that. Do you still go to the movies, and what's the last couple of films that you saw, and what are you looking forward to going to see?
Man, I have not been to the movies much. I did catch the latest Ghostbusters movie.
Did you like it?
Not especially. But you know what? I'm a Ghostbusters fanatic since, I was 3 or 4 years old. It's fine. my friends with kids seem to enjoy it. I'm not gonna be one of those nerds that's gonna shake my fist and say, "Oh, they ruined my childhood."
Oh,
They
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
But it's like, oh, okay. Last one was, I liked the last one. Better luck next time, I guess. But what am I looking forward to? I still haven't seen Civil War. I want to see that. And then is it Late Night with the Devil? It's this very small indie movie. I think it might have played at Regal for a week or so. It's still in theaters, but it takes place in the 70s, and it's about a late night talk show. I don't know too much about it. I just know that it involves the devil and is creepy.
Have you seen this movie where the guy, it came out a couple years ago, it's named after, I think, a real boat or real ship throughout history, where they are transporting Dracula?
Last Voyage of the Demeter?
I think
that's what
it's got the guy from Game of Thrones in it.
Right.
Yeah. How was that?
I didn't catch it. They're basically... when we were making Sweetest Day, Killers of the Flower Moon came out, and I was talking to the crew guys. I said, this is a great problem to have, but this is the first Scorsese movie I haven't gone to see on its first day, and I don't know how long. But again, I'm grateful because I was working on Sweetest Day. But I don't remember where I was going with that.
Well, we're talking about that vampire movie.
Yeah. So anyway, I've missed so much recently. I haven't been getting out to the movies as much because I've been busy on this.
Yeah.
How about you? You got anything to recommend?
Not really. And the reason I brought that Dracula movie up was my dad and I were talking about it yesterday. He was like, "Oh, I saw this, movie," and it reminded me that when I saw the trailer, I kind of wanted to see it. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily. I like all cinema, but I'm not probably. Horror is probably not like my go-to. Mm-hmm. Especially I've got an 11-year-old, and so he's into superheroes and that kind of stuff. Although this was kind of, and I hope people will probably listen and be like, "What? I can't believe you show that to your 11-year-old." Although it's not really that. We covered his eyes, okay, for a couple parts. We showed him. He wanted to see. He likes Christian Bale because of Batman, the Batman series.
For sure.
And he saw a trailer on, I think, Amazon Prime for The Big Short, and okay. Christian Bale's in it and plays a character, and Brad Pitt's in it, and so he likes Brad Pitt too. Mm-hmm. He was like, "Oh, let's watch that," and I hadn't seen it for a couple of years, so I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool, let's turn it on." So we turn it on and we start watching it. He falls asleep. This was like over the weekend, and I sent him upstairs. I wake him up and kind of sleepwalk him upstairs, and then I finished the rest of The Big Short, which there is a scene in it where Steve Carell and what's the guy that just played Ken and Barbie, and he's in The Fall Guy. I forget his name.
Gosling.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling, and they go to meet these guys down in Southwest Florida, and they're talking about, our best clients are strippers, and because they're cash rich, and so they go to the strip club, and there's a girl dancing, and you can see she's nude from the top up. Okay, like, listen, we don't really, we're not showing our kid, nakedness, but at the same time, we also are not like, "Oh, this is so terrible," to be, it's the human body and the human form. I'm an artist, so I don't really. Mm-hmm. So he turns it on the other night. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to watch this." And I'm upstairs reading a script, and my wife's in the, watching TV, and she's like, "What is going on? What are you watching? What is this?" And he's like, "Oh, me and Dad were watching this the other day." And she's like, "I can't believe it," And I had forgot that scene was obviously in there. But he really liked it. He really liked that story. And then he was asking me, we finished it last night, and he was asking me questions about, he goes, "So, they shorted the market, and what's a AA bond and a triple B?" And I'm like, dude, I don't know, because that's not my world, but he was interested in the financial market and how that part of history kind of played out. That was similar, actually, when that all happened, right? When Bear Stearns and all those companies kind of went belly up, that was at that caused the recession, right? The bubble burst caused the recession. And right at that time also was the last writers and actors strike, which was like 2007, 2008 in that period. Mm-hmm. And then, recently, of course, we had this other thing post-pandemic where we've had this kind of recession. So it's kind of interesting that those two things kind of, were bookended at the same time. But I don't know how I got off on that. What have I seen recently and recommend? I don't know, man.
Well, for a second there, I thought you were going to say you showed your 11-year-old like American Psycho or The Machinist, some of these other Christian Bale movies. I was waiting for that bomb to go off.
Yeah,
The Big Short. I didn't even remember boobs in that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But okay, so I think that's good though, like, because I was, 8, 9, 10. Do you remember when Encore first became a cable network long before it was Stars?
Yeah,
and they just showed movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Mm-hmm. So, I would look at the TV guide and say, "Hey, Mom, can I watch The World According to Garp?" And she would say, "Well, I thought it was shit, but knock yourself out."
Yeah.
Or another one, like I saw one of my favorite movies for the first time, MASH, the Altman.
Oh, yeah.
MASH. Like long before I ever watched the TV show, I saw the movie. So I don't know. I think that's a cool thing to kind of encourage as long as it's not too inappropriate,
Well, and that's the thing too. I think if you're sitting there and you're watching it with them, mm-hmm. then you can kind of explain,
right?
Hey, this is what's, kind of happening. Because he has seen some films that are, certainly not like American Psycho or The Machinist. Although he wants to see The Machinist because he's like, did you know Christian Bale lost like 80 pounds? He's real into. He's been in a few obviously, he's been in a couple TV commercials for us, but he's been in some other TV commercials, for other production companies, and mm-hmm. he's done a couple acting workshop shows. He's, at one point when he was little, he's like, I said, what do you, he's like, I'm gonna build robots for a living. That's what I'm gonna be when I grow up. I'm gonna be a robot builder. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then a while back, I asked him, I go, hey, you still want to build robots? He's like, I don't know, Dad. I think I want to be an actor. I go, oh, well, that's cool because whatever you're gonna be, we're gonna support. And obviously, you get some, you can get some experience at that, or you get some exposure to that. But yeah, I think it's important to kind of show. We never really talked to him like a baby. I mean, obviously when he was a baby, you treat him like a baby, but like,
oh sure,
we've always been, we've always just kind of been very upfront with him about the world because mm-hmm. the world's a scary place, obviously, and I think the sooner that we raise our children to kind of be independent and to be able to take care of themselves. I mean, I'm an only child, so and he's an only child, so I guess that kind of makes sense. But like, you need to be able to wash your clothes and take care, cook something on the stove and be cognizant of, be respectful of the power that you possess. Oh, there's fire here, or there's water here, or knowledge is like the same thing. And I think as long as we are open and honest and willing to have some of those conversations that are maybe uncomfortable, then we'll raise a better society for the future. So we're not so like sheltered and kind of coddled. I mean, I can remember my mom would be like, I never did this, but she took me to go see Vacation when I was probably 9 years old or 10 years old. And that was an R-rated film. Now I'm with her in the theater still. And Christy Brinkley gets naked or whatever and dives in the pool, or
Mrs. Griswold in the shower.
Yeah, Beverly D'Angelo.
Forever burned into my brain.
Great tits, man. I mean, beautiful. Both of those girls are great. But it was like, and some of those jokes at 10 you don't really understand anyways. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like some of the jokes when you see Bugs Bunny. You don't really understand those jokes until you get older, and you're like, oh, holy shit, what were they talking about here? But my mom took me to that kind of stuff, and then I can remember being 10 years old also and going to see 10 or 11 and going with my older cousins at the Warren Twin Cinema, which was on Elm Road
by Ames.
That's right, by Ames, going to see Beverly Hills Cop, at 10 years old, man. And there's F words and, but I mean, those are, that's just words and, you're not.
Right.
I think you got to raise kids to be aware of their surroundings and that the world is not always a kind place, and there's a time and a place for everything. And, just because people are using 4-letter words and shit like that, doesn't necessarily mean you need to, or certainly not around your teachers or around adults, but you're going to probably talk that way around your friends. You never talk, right? I mean, you talk around your friends differently when you're a kid than you do adults. And then so yeah, I think it's important to kind of watch, not mature subject matter, right, but to allow them to be mature. You got to expose them to stuff that maybe is not, we're not watching Bubble Guppies at 8 years old or 9 years old anymore. We took him to see, I'm trying to think of, was it Guardians of the Galaxy? And one of the lines is like, you're a total a-hole. He says a-hole. He doesn't say asshole, but you're a total a-hole. Or, and my son kind of was like, oh, because he must have been probably like 7 or 8 at the time.
Right.
Anyways, that stuff's, I think movies in the context of art, for kids, as long as you're there to explain it to them,
right,
is okay. Now, obviously, I'm not going to show him, I don't know. He's not watching fucking Boogie Nights.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, maybe when he's 15, we'll sit him down and watch that.
I just went last year, it was right after the Super Bowl, I went and saw a brand new 70 millimeter print of Boogie Nights.
Oh,
it's beautiful.
Jealous.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was one. I saw it at Movie World when I was too young to buy a ticket, but they didn't care then. And I mean, I love it. That's where I became a Paul Thomas Anderson fanatic.
Yeah.
And then I remember when it came out on video, my parents were watching it, and at one point, my dad just looked and goes, "Wait, we let you go see this?" I was like, "Well, you didn't really let us." We just kind of went.
I really still feel that and Magnolia are two of his strongest pieces. I always go back to Boogie Nights.
Same.
The opening shot, kind of comes off the San Fernando Valley. Mm-hmm. He's obviously on a crane. The crane stops. Whoever's shooting, the Steadicam comes off the crane. You can see a little slight wobble, and then we follow them into this, similar to Scorsese's shot when they walk through the back of the nightclub or whatever that is, the dinner club, the supper club. Mm-hmm. You enter this world as a voyeur, right? Mm-hmm. I love. Man, I'm a sucker for a great tracking shot, whether it's, Robert Altman or Scorsese or, because you're able to kind of follow with these characters into where they were like at a disco or something. And, you kind of twirl around Roller Girl as she's going around, and you meet all these characters while they're on the dance floor, and then get to Jack Horner and him meeting the Mark Wahlberg character, which I can't, Dirk Diggler. Yeah. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I'm a big, bright, shining star. Yes. With this huge prosthetic penis on the fucking screen.
I will never forget sitting at Movie World, and when, spoiler, if you haven't seen Boogie Nights, the last seconds of the movie you see Mark Wahlberg's prosthetic penis. And
you could say dick. It's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Prong. So anyway, he flops it out, and I remember there's an audible gasp goes through, and it always seems like the gasp starts at the front of the screen and then works its way back to
like
the theater.
Wave.
And the guy in front of us threw up his popcorn a bit too. I mean, yeah, I'll probably never forget that moment.
That scene and the scene with Now his name escapes me. They go rob the guy.
Oh, with Tom Jane, Alfred Molina.
Yeah, Alfred Molina.
Oh, yeah.
With the dude with the firecrackers, just fucking randomly lighting off fire. This Asian dude lighting off firecrackers. That's probably one of my top. It's definitely in my top 10.
Yeah.
There's something about that film that I just love. I mean, it's just like a great.
Yeah.
And it's long. It's a longer film, but you don't really ever.
You don't feel it.
Yeah. Did that come out in 99 or
97?
2000? 97.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then 2000 was Magnolia or 99?
99 was. That was a good year.
Yeah, that was a great night. Fight Club, Magnolia. I mean, there was a whole.
The Matrix was that
year. The Matrix was that year. I think Go came out that year. I don't know if you've ever seen Go.
Go is great. Go's kind of underrated.
Grossly underrated.
I saw Go in the theater at the time.
Me too.
And own the soundtrack still.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't get rid of my CDs either. My wife wants me to get rid of my CDs.
No, you can't do it.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I probably have like 400 or 500. And then I got bequeathed a couple other collections. A buddy of mine gave me his blues. He's considerably older than me. He's in his 70s. Gave me like 300 mostly blues, probably 250 different blues albums. She's like, you got to get rid of this stuff. Like, there's no way. Go had a great soundtrack
for sure.
Whatever happened to what was the girl's name?
Sarah Polley.
Sarah Polley.
She directs.
Does she?
Yeah.
She was.
She's a
wickedly
great director.
Talented.
Yeah,
as an actor, she's
as
a
a
great
director as
too.
well.
Yeah.
She made. Did you see the movie Away from Her? I mean, it'll break your heart. It's fantastic, but it's about people dealing with Alzheimer's in a home. It's like a husband and wife, and then
I can't watch it.
Yeah, it'll kill you. But it's outstanding.
I'm a crier.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a fucking crier.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
That's the place to do
I
it.
probably saw E.T. 100 times, every single time.
Yeah.
Casablanca, every single time. Love it. Magnolia, where Tom Cruise is finally.
I'm not gonna cry.
Oh my God! Fucking
That's
Waterworks, buddy.
Anytime people bag on Cruise, I say check out Magnolia, Risky Business, and Collateral.
Yeah, Collateral's probably my favorite of his. Yeah. Probably my favorite. That's definitely my favorite Michael Mann film.
It's up there for me.
Also grossly underrated.
For sure.
Yeah. People don't even really kind of talk about. I'm like, dude, have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
That movie was shot digitally.
Right.
In L.A. and he captured. Remember where the wolf is like kind of.
Yes.
We always talk about like the hand of God. Like sometimes you're just shooting and like shit just happens and you're like, I didn't plan this, and it just worked. It just fell into place. That was one of those moments of like, just fell in. Kind of like you with the bonfire scene with that shot.
Yes.
You're just kind of driving through, and you're like, oh, fuck, that's great. Awesome, man. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, if you want them to get a hold of you,
for sure.
What are your handles, and where can they find out more information? Is there a Facebook page for the film? Like, give us all the stuff, because this obviously will come out before the film does, and I want people to track it.
So there is Sweetest Day Movie on social media. There you can take a look at the short film version. We haven't really started rolling out our marketing and press yet for the feature, so everything's still kind of coming together. One of the first things I'm going to do when I get back to LA is dial in our trailer, so that should be out. You can get at me, probably best way is on Instagram at Ledugger, Ledougger. I know that sounds French Canadian. I am not, but
oui.
Yeah, oui. Yes. That's about the extent of my French. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Sweetest Day Movies also on Facebook, so you can reach out there for more information. But yeah, the rollout will be happening very soon, so stay tuned. I hope people are interested. Yeah, get at me if you need. I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, and locals that are into the arts and I'm always trying to push, to be an artist, we've got to be patrons of the arts too. So all the artists that are kind of listening, make sure you follow Doug on social media and make sure you like the Sweetest Day page, right? You got a Facebook page, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's where you're going to be rolling out maybe the trailer and some of that other stuff.
Yes.
You know, and share that stuff. Share that with those who may be interested. Tell me the girl's name again, the lead.
Doree C.
Doree C. Wickedly talented. She's also the actress in, did we talk about that? She's the actress in the If It Bleeds. We did talk about that.
She's not in If It Bleeds. She's also...
Or not If It...
Curse World Problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Gypsies.
Yes, my Gypsy Curse short film.
Fucking Gypsies. That was another. Is that the line? I don't know. There was a line. I was watching it last night, and there's a line where, I don't know if it's the father. Let's just, real quick, though. I just want to, like, prime it. This is a movie about like a generational gypsy curse because a gypsy got cheated out of a chicken. They stole a chicken from this, or didn't pay the gypsy for this chicken.
Right.
And that's another kind of clever short, man. I really like. She's wickedly talented though.
Oh, I'm spoiled.
Is she? What's she doing? Is she on other projects now? Or
She is constantly busy. I'm not sure exactly what she's doing this very second, but I
Call her
guarantee
up
it's.
right now.
I should. She's probably.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, come on, man. Let's call her.
I mean, yeah, you can. You certainly can. It might be anticlimactic though if she doesn't answer.
What do you want?
But she is working, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for her. Let's see, and keep an eye out for If It Bleeds. Should be out in the summer.
Yeah. Super excited about both of those. Doug, Hawley, appreciate you spending some time with us today. We're gonna go grab a drink somewhere, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe some Modern Methods. Modern Methods makes a little cameo in the.
Yeah. We were waltzing around downtown, location scouting, I believe, and we happened to meet, I believe, the owner. Is it Mr. Keck?
Adam Keck, yep.
He looks a bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi, no? Okay, because when we met him, he was dressed like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, that sounds about right.
And, you know...
He's doing karaoke over at Urban Tap right now.
Oh, well, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we became very fond of him and the crew very quick, and we even called him Brewmaster Kenobi.
Well, I appreciate it. Mr. Doug Hawley, thank you for coming on, sir. Good luck to you in the future. We're going to be looking for Sweetest Day out in the theater near you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Take care.